On today's RotoWire Fantasy Baseball podcast, Fred Zinkie shares his must-5 September ads. Okay, maybe not five. Maybe not must ads. We'll do that and share our frustrations with all the day-to-day and injury moves that are happening right now here on the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball podcast. Hey everybody, welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Baseball podcast. Jeff Erickson here with a very angry Fred Zinkie. Fred is as angry as a Canadian gets, but lots of frustration right now in our fantasy baseball leagues. It's September, and guess what? It's that time, and it's especially bad this year, I feel like, Fred, because we had the compressed spring training. We got guys, I think, wearing out a little bit more. That is my theory, and I'm sticking by it here, but it makes all of our pickups a little bit more important. Let's just get into it, though. Share us, who's frustrating you the most right now?
Oh, I can make a list. So you're right. So I think what happens in September really is, and I'm pretty good at not getting upset as the season goes along. Like 10 years ago, Fred would get upset. Nowadays, I don't really anymore because you just know that there's going to be ebbs and flows, and you're going to have bad days and good days, and everybody's pitchers are going to get scratched sometimes and things like that. But we get to this point now in September where like there's no more time for ebbs and flows. Like
Right.
if you miss out on some wins or something this week, like you don't have a lot of time to get them back. So I think you just feel this added pressure. So for example, it looks like Ryan Presley's not going to be activated today, as they had told us the entire time that this neck injury was very minor, and maybe he will still get activated today or tomorrow or something. But we were told this neck injury was very minor. He threw a bullpen session on the weekend. He was good to go. This was more precautionary than anything else. We watched Rafael Montero pick up saves in bunches while he was on the IL. Hector Neris, I think, got one in there. I was ready for Presley to come back. Looks like it's not happening. I have him on some important teams where I need every save possible. Anthony Rizzo's on the IL with a back injury now. I have him on many, many teams. As we talked about all year, his back is always a concern. Now it looks like Max Scherzer isn't going to start this week. I have him on some teams. We may not start this week. What are we supposed to do with that information? Thanks a lot, Mets. Right? Like,
Yeah,
guys, I could still move Max Scherzer. The Mets haven't played this week, but unfortunately, probably a lot of the pitchers I would have replaced him with are now locked. So
yeah, that's exactly the problem.
Yes. So especially such as while I'm ranting, Pete Fairbanks, who I sat this week because he hadn't had saves lately, and I had some other decent options, and then he goes out yesterday and of course gets a save on a team where I could really use saves. So I think we all feel added pressure right now, and you're at a point in the standings where like there's still about 4 weeks left. Like you can still move up and down a fair amount.
Oh, yeah.
In a couple weeks, maybe in some leagues, I'll just resign myself to like, it isn't going to happen. Or maybe I'll just be in a position where I'm like, okay, it is going to happen and we'll feel less pressure. I don't know. I find right now, like every year I feel a sense of urgency where I'm like, it could happen, but it needs to happen. Like the process needs to be started now. And then you get these things that are kind of outside your control, and it's frustrating.
Oh, absolutely. And you know what? I feel like there's this lag effect too. Like I've had my main event team the main event online team that's doing very well has slumped for like the last 10 days. And I'm like, it's weird. I've been slumping, but I guess everybody else is too, because I haven't been losing ground in my league standings. Well, yesterday I started losing ground in my league standings, and yet another 3 for 24 with 2 RBI. I'm like, just watching these guys, either, not play or not hit at all. Braves weren't playing yesterday. If the Braves aren't playing, I feel like I'm not getting any hitting. Michael Harris and Dansby Swanson are saving that team right now, and Matt Olson too. But when they're not playing, I'm like, and like that, and it's finally starting to take its like cumulative effect. There's still enough time to lose ground in the standings. After all, I climbed that ladder a month ago. Now I'm kind of descending that ladder.
Yeah, Dansby Swanson's another guy who's been like just fine lately. Not terrible, but not as good as he had been. He's on some of my important teams. But I think you're right. Like, so at the beginning of the year, if you have a couple 3 bad days in a row, you see the movement in the standings. Now you can you log in the next morning, you had a bad night, and you kind of cringe as you check the standings, and you're like, oh, okay, I didn't go down. Okay, I didn't go down. But we've been doing this for a long time. You did go down. You just didn't go down far enough to lose the points yet. But if you had 2 RBIs, like some people they moved closer to you.
Right.
And if it continues, they will eventually catch you. It's just you can survive later in the season a bad night. I had Andrew Heaney last night in an important league, and I got up this morning and looked, and I was like, oh, Andrew Heaney, every time I start you, you let in a lot of runs or pitch 3 innings or something. Every time I don't start you, you're great. He wasn't great last night. And then you
can start to see the gap, and you can see the gaps narrowing, like home runs. Like, oh, I can see. Oh, you're a lot closer now. Oh,
so you're like, okay, I'm still okay, but we need to get it. We need to get back on track tonight, guys. And then, but if it keeps going, then if it keeps going, like you will lose those points eventually.
Yeah, and it's in the averages too. Like I've lost a couple of points in batting average the last couple of days because I keep on getting these strings of 125, 174, 210. Like 210 would be like a good day now. It's just aggravating as all get up there.
You do see you do see it much faster in the overall, because in the overall there's just so many teams that like if you have a 2 RBI night or a 175 batting average night, like you're gonna get passed by some people. So in your league, you may not see it every day, which maybe is good for stress relief. That's the overall is just too stressful in that regard. But yeah, it is what it is. This is, like I said, this is the crunch time right now. You might get to a place of peace with some of these teams in 2 weeks where you're like, oh, there's only a couple weeks left. Like I've got this, or I don't got it, or I'm not competing in the overall. Right now, a lot of leagues I think could go in either direction to a large degree.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'd highly recommend not looking at the overall every day like I've been doing lately. It's not helpful. Just look at the end of the week. I mean, it is what it is. You can't, I understand. Okay, maybe look on Friday. If you're looking at individual categories, you're trying to decide whether you want to get the power guy versus the speed guy, I guess. But look on Mondays when you're setting your lineup, or even look on Sundays when you're doing your free agents and you want to conjure up a strategy. Decide where you can gain points. But other than that, don't check day to day. It's just, the swings are a killer.
I think that's really good advice and a really good topic for this time of year. Like, so I've always believed like you should intimately know your roster and how they're doing throughout the week. Like, I think you should know that. You should know if you want to check every box score every day, or go in and check your team's box score, however you want to do it. Do you want to go through an app, the MLB box scores, and look, or whatever? But you should be keeping track of, like, because that's how you really notice. We're like, oh, this guy hasn't been in the lineup much this week, or this guy, they keep hitting him 7th. That didn't used to be the case. So I think you've got to keep track of your team every day and how they played, but you don't need to look at the standings every day unless you want to, but you don't need to. You just need to check those later in the week when you're planning, what you want to do for the next week. So it doesn't really matter how you got to Saturday night or Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon in the standings. It's just like that you're there. That's all that matters for the standings. But I do like checking every day to know, for example, that Andrew Heaney didn't pitch well last night. I want to see that. I want to know if Yandy Diaz wasn't in the lineup yesterday, just for when I'm assessing him at the end of the week.
Yeah, absolutely. Those parts. Watch the games. Watch your players. I even watched my closers on Sunday and lived to tell the tale. Now, Clay Holmes was very shaky, but he got it done with maybe a benefit of a call at the end there. But at the same time, Barlow had a nice clean save. It was beautiful. Then problem was Barlow pitched yesterday in a non-save chance. It was a tie game. Didn't give up a run, but gave up some base runners. Probably won't close if there's a save situation for the Royals tonight. Holmes was good again yesterday. Now the Yankees have been rained out, so that's beautiful. So he'll have a day of rest before he pitches in the doubleheader tomorrow. Hopefully, there's another save chance there. Saves are where it's all at for me. Saves and hitting. I mean, I need good starts, but I'm not really chasing wins, at least not in my league. I am chasing them in the overall. I guess you need them. Every win counts in the overall, but way more important in the overall than the league. But saves, every save is like manna from heaven.
Yeah, and you'll be following along, and maybe the Yankees, if you have Holmes, the Yankees will be up 3-0 in the 8th, and you're like, don't tack on. And all of a sudden they get another run and you're like, there goes my save chance. True story. I watched the Blue Jays on Sunday, and then the channel just naturally flipped over to the Yankees Rays game because there's such big interest to Blue Jays fans. And I watched that game for probably 4 innings, the last 4 innings, all the way up to the commercial break heading into the bottom of the 9th. And I have Clay Holmes on an important team, and I shut it off. So,
wow, good discipline.
Not watching your closer. I watched that game right up until then, which then at that point I knew there would be a save chance for sure. I knew he was coming in. I shut it off. I went and did something else for 20 minutes, and then I checked to make sure he got the save.
So you're the hero that nobody knew about there. We thank you for your service.
Yep.
Appreciate you.
Clay Holmes owners, you can tweet at me, thank me for tuning off the game. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let's use that as a bridge to a general topic, and I like general topics this time of year. We can talk some interesting things. Otherwise, just some of the stuff that happened last night. But saves, closers, wasn't a mistake to draft closers early this year. They went earlier than ever. Hader's obviously struggling now. Hendricks went through a phase where he's struggling a little bit. Clase and Jansen lead baseball on saves with 31. Romano and Hendricks are at 30. After all Hendricks has been through, he's at 30 saves. And we have Diaz and Hader at 29, Bard and Rogers at 28. We're not going to get 40 saves from anybody this year. We'll probably get 35 from a couple people, but it wasn't a mistake to draft these closers early.
Yeah. I think in large this year, small sample size, it's 1 year, it's a few guys, but I think just looking at the list, So, I mean, if we just go through, I just pulled up the
Hader's actually at 30, by the way. I misspoke because it just, when I looked at the stats page, it just showed his Brewers stats. He had 28 with the Brewers, 2 so far at the Padres.
Right. So I'm going to say Hader's a bad pick. Like, he's been dropped by a bunch of people. He was dropped by a bunch of people in August. His ratios are poor. I know you got 30 saves if you've hung on to him like grim death all the way to September, but like he was the 7th pitcher off the board in April NFBC drafts, like the 7th overall pitcher off the board. Like that's not good. He has an ERA in the 5s, right?
Sixes.
Sorry. Not good. Liam Hendricks was the 9th pitcher off the board. I'd say he's been a disappointing pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not like a total bust, but disappointing. His ratios aren't as bad as Hader's, but they're not good. And you didn't get the 100 strike. You're not getting the 100 strikeouts you're hoping to get. And he could still lead the majors in saves, by the way, Hendricks. Like he's right there, and they work him hard. So
yeah, well, Hader's could still lead the majors in saves.
Yeah,
it's still possible. He's at 30. He's not. So he's only one off the lead.
So
that would be crazy.
He could lead the majors in saves and be a bust, right? Like if he leads the majors in saves, but his final ERA is 5.87 or something, then I gotta think he's still a bust.
Yeah.
So those two are busts. Next closer off the board was Iglesias. You only got him until, it was a weird one, but you only got him until we didn't see coming. But who cares? It's all part of the puzzle that you didn't. So there's the first 3.
And he was pitcher 14 in the main event, by the way. Iglesias was. So
yeah. So you didn't have him past the end of July. Like if you're going to pay that price, like you're putting him in with aces, then I think you need to have Iglesias for the whole season. Clase and Diaz were next. They've both been great.
Yes. More than great. They've been amazing. Clase has 7 walks all season. Diaz has 9 walks all season. Or no, I'm sorry. 9 earned runs. Those are 9 earned runs. Diaz has 17 walks. So he's a little bit wilder, but still go ahead.
Ryan Pressly next. I would say definitely very disappointing. I know he has 25 saves. He could still come back this week and end up with 30 saves, but
he did not kill you though.
He didn't kill you, but definitely what's his strikeout total? It's like something that's not, because he's been
46 Ks so far this season.
So
only 37 innings.
He could get to 60, 55. It's not terrible.
You didn't lose on Ryan Pressly.
No, you're right. And when I look at the starters, he's around some pretty awesome starters. Verlander, Gosman. He's done some pretty good. Cease. Like a Cease guy's not bad. So that's not bad. But you missed it. Maybe you would have taken Brios. So maybe you save
or a hitter. Maybe you
Yeah,
would have taken
for
a
sure.
hitter there too.
For sure. I just have them sorted in the pitchers right now. Kenley Jansen and Chapman are next, like back to back in the
Kenley
April.
Jansen, you're not complaining about. You got 31 saves out of him.
Yeah, he's fine. He should get to 35. Obviously, Chapman, massive bust.
Massive complaints about him. Sure.
Yes. So he's the most disappointing guy, right? So far. Yes, by a mile.
Yeah. Romano's in that grouping too.
Romano's next. Now we start to hit the point though where are we still saying early closer? So like with Romano, his ADP in April is around pick 85.
Yeah, but no, I'm just sorting by main event ADP.
Okay, what pick's that?
62.
That's pretty early. Yeah, that's early.
Yeah. So I mean, he was one of those where if you got caught up in the inflation and you missed it, you probably missed out on. Like I missed out on him. Funny thing is, my better team, we did not take the early closer. We missed out. It wasn't that we were like anti-early closer. It's just, we had to take a value on Matt Olson. We had to take we took Urias in the second round instead of the closer. Happy with that. Very happy with that. But then after that, there's always like, okay, well, they're presenting this to us. Let's do it. I mean, they're like, even in the fifth round, when we made our worst pick with Javier Baez, it wasn't because like, oh, well, yeah, we can't take the value on this. It's like, oh, we got shut out on the closer. Who do we go with instead?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but so far, there's a couple of busts in there. They're not terrible picks, but we're also not getting like 40 saves. It's just the way baseball is now too.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, you just have to live with 30. Kimbrel's next, but bust somewhat, kind of. He has some saves. He has plenty of saves, like enough saves.
21, only 21 saves, Fred.
Yeah, so if you just finish the year with 25 and then he's not really
bad ratios,
valuable. Yeah, not good. Giovanni Gallegos is next. Massive bust.
Not as big. Well, yeah, he's a bust. He's gotten 3 saves lately, by the way. No, for nobody. Nobody had him.
I know.
That's the thing. But his ratios are great. 288 and 1. He has 2 wins and 13 saves, 60 Ks. But you haven't been able to roster him for the last 2 months.
No, and for a reliever, you took around pick 100, somewhere in that range. Like
that's a bust.
Yeah, it's a bust. Corey Knebel, I think I have next.
Yep, that was the guy that everybody was pushing up when you missed out on the top tier. Okay, he's the bridge between the good closers and the crappy closers, if you will.
I might argue Taylor Rogers is next. I guess a bust. I might argue that now, by the time you get to pick whatever I have him as 140 in overall April ADP. You probably have him a little higher than that.
Main event ADP was higher. Main event VP was 95.
Right.
So but keep in mind, there's some of that happened after the trade to San Diego, where it became abundantly clear that he was going to be their closer.
Yeah.
He's absolutely not a bust, though. He is currently a bust.
Yeah.
But he got you 28 saves.
Yeah, at pick 100, that's not bad.
If you told me
even
pick 100,
I can. Great.
Yeah, and maybe 2 of those he got recently, so maybe with the Brewers. But in fact, I take with the Brewers, he has 30 total. He had 28 with the Padres. Mm-hmm. That last couple of weeks with the Padres was exceedingly tough.
Mm-hmm.
So say you roster 26 out of the 30. You tell me pick 100, I can roster 26 saves and then fill the roster spot with something else.
That's not bad. Yep.
I'll take it.
Yep. Scott Barlow and Mark Melancon are my next 2. And then I think I might kind of cut off the word early there. Scott Barlow, good. Mark Melancon.
Yeah. Barlow's been beautiful. I mean, not as many saves as those other guys, only 21 saves, but 253, 103, 65 strikeouts, 5 wins.
Yeah.
The wins are a sneaky added component of that too.
Yeah, if I was to go further, it would be Soto, Kittredge, Jake McGee, all in a.
And this is the area we talk in football. There's the running back dead zone, right?
Dead zone, yeah.
There's a closer dead zone too.
Yeah, Matt Barnes is right after them. He can fit in the closer dead zone.
Yeah, Barlow was the only guy that escaped the vortex there. Really?
Yeah, David Bednar and Lou Trevino, they're in that. Like we're sure out of early like closers at this point. I think my takeaway is like I don't think that when I say early closers, like. I don't think any closers are going in round 2 like Hader and Hendricks did. Like, I don't think that's happening next year.
I'd agree with that.
I could be wrong. Maybe Diaz will.
Diaz and Clase might.
Clase, I don't know with his strikeout total if people will push him that high.
Fair.
I don't know. Maybe. I guess the whole reason you take them that early, or a big reason, is the extra job security. that they have and reliability. I don't know. I think drafting a closer. So I've done this year with Jeff Zimmerman on our super team, we drafted Presley and Chapman in rounds 4 and 5. And last year we drafted, I think it was Chapman, who was fine last year. Like, okay, good enough. And Trevor Rosenthal in rounds 5 and 6. So
Uh-huh.
both years we've double tapped early closers, and both years just one of them's been acceptable and the other one's been like complete zero, basically. Rosenthal was a 0 and Chapman not far off. So I'm kind of wondering if like maybe that's too much investment in the closer position, or taking a closer around like 2 or 3, maybe that's too much as well.
It might be. I think where you are in those respective rounds matter too. I mean, you may have other targets, and if you get, I think they're the pivot if your targets get taken. Like, okay,
Right.
I'll take a
Right.
closer. Go back. That
Sure.
was the old mentality.
Yep.
Like when Derek Van Riper, I believe, was the first to use the phrase double tap closers because he did it at a turn, like a 3-4 turn, I think.
Right.
He when he did that, there was like, oh yeah. And some of the discussion was, some of it was proactive on Derek's part, but I think, we've talked about like, hey, just take the closer if you're not sure. If you don't like the remaining pools, you get aced out on the aces. Okay, we'll go with closer instead. Or those speed power guys dry up in the 3rd or 4th round. Okay, well, I'll go with the closer instead. I think that's been a mentality. Now, in response to you saying maybe you should only go with one, how do you know the one that you got is not the bust of the two?
I know that could be your.
And then you're left with 0.
I know. I think part of the theory of getting the 2 early closers is that you're going to stay out of the closer madness, the chaos, the weekly like speculation fab. Maybe Tanner Houck should be picked up. Like, who's closing for the Reds now? Like, that whole thing is just annoying.
It's mad. Yeah,
it is. However,
Rays, Reds, Mariners, so many teams like that now.
However, I think maybe that's actually just part of it though. Like, it's annoying. I cut Paul Sewald in a really important league because he had like no saves in April. And now he has something like 17 and good ratios. It would have been really valuable to keep. Like, I know all that stuff's annoying and trying to grab these guys late and off waivers, but maybe that's actually just part of a winning formula, even though it's hard. Like, it can be hard, but also part of a winning formula.
I think that's a great point. I think it is, just because you find it distasteful doesn't mean doesn't mean you can't do it. That you shouldn't do it. Yeah, maybe it's nice. I'll say this. I'm not streaming starting pitchers in September with the team that has so many wins, and that has been very liberating. But I'm in the muck with all the closers there too. And right now we've got 4 relievers active in that league. We've got, we held on to Clay Holmes this whole time after we picked him up. We missed his first couple of saves because it was one of those, okay, Chapman looks terrible, let's just pick up Holmes. And then we kept him on our bench and we missed out on some good weeks. But we've held on to him like through his IL trip. Thank God we did, because now we're getting some saves again. But it's been making do with Barlow, and then we picked up Sir Anthony Dominguez, yay, for one save, and then he got hurt. We've repicked him up since, by the way. We're dealing with Jimmy Herget. We're dealing with others like that there, and it's ugly, but we're in the 40s in saves, and that's enough to get us points. That's sometimes those hustle points. Now the problem is, like, when you spend big money on one of the fab guys, and in fab on one of those guys, and it doesn't work. Like, you do that, you want to get that guy, the Ryan Helsley, who is closing the rest of the season, or Holmes or something like that. But so many other times you're getting a guy that may not even be the guy. I remember Hector Neris went for big fab money early on when the first time Presley got hurt. And nope, sorry, it wasn't him. That's the frustrating, annoying thing, is not being identified the right guy who's this filling guy too.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe the answer is that you also don't spend big bucks. You grind it out. Unfortunately, even though it sucks, I have Ian Kennedy on a couple teams.
Oh, I have him too. Yeah, same team.
Yeah, and it's not pretty. It's not pretty, but he didn't cost $100. He cost, like, I don't remember, 20 or something like that. But some of those guys, Jonathan Hernandez, who's had some saves recently, but it's just trying to grind out. AJ Puck's had some saves. I mentioned Fairbanks, Jason Adam, he's had some saves, but maybe the thing is you have to grind them out, especially. So I'm noticing in the 15 team leagues, there are no starting pitchers to add. like
No.
not only are there they're none. Like I was evaluating Drew Hutchison on Sunday. Like I actually spent a few minutes looking at Drew Hutchison and thinking, can I start this guy? If this guy had a decent matchup, could I start this guy? He's had his ERA is like, I don't know, it's like high threes or something. I was like, okay, like, and then I kind of shook my head. I was like, oh my gosh, what are we doing here? Like I'm evaluating whether I could start a bad pitcher like Drew Hutchison on a terrible team like Detroit on a 1-start week. And then I went back and said, forget it. I'm not interested. But at least you can play around with these saves. John Schreiber is another one, right? Who just was on waivers a lot this week. Like you said, Jimmy Herget, who I didn't get but bid on. Like at least you can play around with these. And there's people to add late in the season to try to keep boosting yourself up in saves, which may lend itself again to saying, I'm not going to double tap elite closers. I'm going to try to get one and try to get class A or something. And then I'm going to work some mid-round pick or two. I'm going to work the waiver wire, and I'm going to hope that my class A or my Kenley Jansen or whatever gets me 30 saves. And then I'm going to work to get myself 20 more from various pitchers. And instead I'm going to have maybe more starting pitchers because I can't find in 15s. I can't find them in 12s. I can still find starting pitchers on the waiver wire. In 15s, I can't. There aren't any. Chris Archer's gone.
Well,
in my league.
That's a gift. When you speak of that person that picked him up in your league, speak well because he did you a favor.
Yeah, like I looked at Ken Waldachuk, right? Because he look at his look at like his.
Oh yeah, look at his strikeout numbers. Yeah, absolutely.
I was going to say, look at his matchups for the rest of the season. If you just project him out for his starts, they're like almost all playoff teams that he's facing for the rest of the year. So he's pitching for Oakland against playoff teams. Like, is that really your, like, if you needed to move up and you need a starting pitcher to move up, he is not probably going to be, he's going to be really talented to be your answer.
What? You are just stealing content from your next segment though, with Fred's 5 must pick up players there for September.
I'm just ruling people out right now. The guys I'm not picking, you know who I'm not picking up? Starting pitchers. I mean, not in that segment, starting pitchers.
Except for Ken Waldachuk, who you are picking up there. But
I mentioned him until I went and dove into his matchups. And then I was like,
no, so you're not picking him up. I'm
not
sorry.
picking him up.
So busy looking at something, I misheard you there.
Oh, no, I was saying, no, I had mild interest in him until I looked, and he faces, like, this week it's the Braves. 1 week it's the Mets. 1 week it's like a 2-start week, but it's Texas and Houston. He's got the Mariners once or twice, and like that's the rest of the season. Like that's his schedule. So how many wins can Ken Waldachuk pitching for the A's realistically get with that schedule?
That sounds like how many chucks can a woodchuck chuck? But
yeah, so like one win you're hoping for at that point.
Especially because it's the A's, who they're not going to support him. Yeah.
Right. So yeah, there are not starting pitchers. You need starting pitcher depth, and maybe you can maybe since we only need 45, 50 saves, you can mess around with your relievers. I don't know. This is all a work in progress.
Well, I kind of stumbled into that strategy in the main. I mean, that's where we have so many wins. Because like in the teens, I mean, I literally said to Tim, okay, let's just load up on starting pitchers. We'll go 8-1, 7-2 if we have to early on. And just then we can fab closers. It's kind of worked. It stumbled upon a strategy. I don't think it's necessarily the way to go, but I think it is a way to go if you get blocked out on the top closers. Every once in a while, you see a top closer slip. Class A dropped to me in labor this year. I got him relatively cheaply, if I recall correctly. Now, I may have missed that other things wrong in that league, but closers I'm fine in. But I think it's a way to make things work. It's a way to work around when you don't, because there's a finite number of elite closers, and if they're getting pushed up, something else falls to you. You got to get to something else right. But then, you punish the league for not giving you the closers. You get the better starters. Now, I happen to get lucky too on some of the starters we got. Gonsolin, Wainwright, Michaelis. Notice none of those are like huge strikeout guys. That was the thing that kind of fell a little bit, maybe perhaps. But they gave us so many wins and great ratios that it made things, more viable in the long run. And it is liberating to kind of cut off one area that you need to find in categories to pick up. Something you don't deal with in football, by the way. You're just fantasy points.
Yeah, you just get your points.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah.
Before we talk about your must get September players, quick note from our friends on the Blue Wire Network. Welcome back to RotoWire, and he's Fred. Fred with the closet, Jeff with the window open, and no noise for once coming out that way. But let's talk about some of the 5 must get September pickups for Fred Zinkie that we got to deliver. We teased it this year a little bit. No starting pitchers. Let's talk about some of the other guys. I'll tee you up. I'll name the player. You can talk about him here because you already put the time in and wrote about it here. So number 1, I am going to go with one starting pitcher that you mentioned here, because he's a guy that people don't realize is pitching very well. Was very terrible with the Nats. That is Austin Voth with the Baltimore Orioles. And you could probably do a whole article on Baltimore Orioles pitchers and all season long and how well that's been a good pickup. But tell me more about Austin Voth.
Yeah, actually, I did think about writing an article on Baltimore Orioles pitchers, because we all know that LA Dodgers pitchers are seem to always often exceed expectation. But yeah,
Right.
if you just picked up all the Orioles pitchers, you would have gotten some great values on some of these guys who I've known, Dean Kramer and Austin Voth, for example. Yeah, so Voth wasn't great last time out, but with Baltimore, since he's been on Baltimore, which is actually the bulk of his season, 17 appearances, 13 starts, 2.71 ERA, 1.17 WHIP, and his FIP is 3.46. So a little higher than his ERA, but still, if I could get a 3.46 ERA out of Voth, we know that pitching in Camden Yards is much better than it used to be. Voth does not get big strikeout numbers. However, he hasn't allowed more than 3 runs in any start since the last time he allowed more than 3 runs actually wasn't to start. It was before he was in the rotation. It was way back in May. The last time he allowed more than 3 runs in any appearance. So since he's been in their rotation, he's allowed 3 runs twice, and all the rest are 1s and 2s. He does not get a ton of strikeouts. He's probably averaging, just eyeballing, about 4 strikeouts per start. So he's not going to turn around that category for you. But Baltimore's got a winning record. He's got 4 wins since the beginning of July, which doesn't sound amazing, but it's pretty normal nowadays. A couple wins a month. Yeah, I think he's useful. 12-team leagues. I think if I picked him up, I would actually just keep him for the rest of the year.
Only problem is schedule. Yep. Again, next game is at home against the Red Sox. At least it's home.
I don't hate that. I don't totally hate it. They're kind of playing up the string now.
Yep.
Yeah. And he's in Baltimore. And Baltimore's still fighting. Yeah. I think Baltimore, I'll say this as a Jays fan, I think Baltimore's going to win tonight and climb back in. Yesterday was a really bad day for Baltimore. But I think they'll climb back in a little bit tonight. But I think
Bradish versus Mitchell White. Yep. I can see it.
Yeah. White just hasn't been good lately.
And Bradish sneakily has been very good lately.
Totally. Yeah. Another Orioles pitcher that lately you could stream. So yeah, I think a lot of those Orioles pitchers, again, I'm not starting them at Yankee Stadium, but now that their home park's better, I'll start them against Tampa in either location. So
yeah.
And
he'll start Voth this week against Boston, but next week he's at Toronto. So I wouldn't use him there.
Probably out for
That's a bridge too far for me.
The Jays lineup has been a little up and down in the last
It has.
Well, actually very up and down in the last few weeks, but I probably still fear them enough that I wouldn't do that. I might do it if he got a matchup with Mitch White or something, but if he had a matchup against Gosman or Manoah, then forget it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
All right. Next pickup option here. Bubba Thompson. Very fast man. Playing for the Texas Rangers. He's been picked up in a lot of leagues already in the main. I noticed that already, but on Yahoo leagues, he was low rostered, at least at the time he wrote this article over the weekend.
Yeah, there's not much interest in him. I get it. He's a total one category guy, but along with saves, steals are the one where you can easily identify a few players who can really move you up. Mm-hmm. And he's very he's someone who, because he's a one category guy, will be more readily available than others. So since the All-Star break, he's tied for 3rd in the majors in steals.
Yeah.
He's also hitting 295. He's got a super high BABIP, so I can't totally endorse him as a batting average help. He is hitting 295 since the All-Star break, but yeah, he's he's a one category guy, but he's stealing lately. He's stealing like 2 bases a week.
He is.
You can't find that from very many guys. There's going to be no one available in your 12 team leagues, probably other than him, who can get you that amount of steals. Like Jake McCarthy, I think, is gone in all those leagues now. So Jake McCarthy's been great, a great free agent.
Oh, he's been awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, and I don't think Corbin Carroll and Gunnar Henderson are available after this last weekend's Fab run. I think those are two players also. Obviously, that'd be very interesting. But yeah, just pulling up Thompson now on on Yahoo just to see just get an idea of it. He's obviously roster only. He's only 18% rostered though overall. Across,
if I needed pure steals, he would be after McCarthy. He'd be my next guy. Like taking away like Bobby Witt and these guys who are never going to be on your waiver wire. Thompson would be my next guy after McCarthy. So in a 10 team, you could probably get McCarthy. You could maybe still get McCarthy, maybe, but anything deeper than that, I think Thompson's your guy. And again, he's not going to help you at all in homers and RBIs, really, but the steals are worth it in a lot of leagues.
Exactly. So I think he's a very interesting pickup. My home league that's on Yahoo, I have a second league that's on Yahoo. He was available, so he's not anymore. I picked him up. Thanks to your advice. If he fails, it's your fault.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about a couple other guys here that might be interesting. Closing, Jimmy Herget. We talked about him in passing a little bit there. So Herget and Schreiber were the two options. We ended up prioritizing Herget over Schreiber just because I think Boston might mix and match a little bit more. But I mean, they're both very good.
Yes, I think Herget has a better chance to get like all of his team saves or like virtually all of his team saves. I don't know how many that's going to be from the Angels, but I think if the Angels produce 6 more saves, he could get 4 or 5 in the rest of the season. Schreiber I like actually, but I agree with you. I think sometimes Whitlock might get a save. Sometimes Matt Barnes. If the Red Sox get 6 more saves, I could see all 3 of those guys getting like 2, or maybe Schreiber gets 3 or something like that. So I like Herget a little more than that. I left the Cubs guys out of that recent article because I kind of written them up a lot lately. I think Rowan Wick got their most recent save, but I still think Hughes might be the guy over Wick, although I think it's like a just manager's whim or timeshare or who's had the most rest or something type situation. But when Wick got that last save, they were in Toronto, and Wick is Canadian. And I think that was a bit of a favor to him. Like it's his first time he ever got a save in Canada. It might be the only time he ever gets a save in Canada. They're out of the race, kind of a special moment for him. The announcers talked about it on the home broadcast for the Blue Jays. Canadians eat all that stuff up. Like we like that stuff because there only are about 20 Canadians in the majors. So all that stuff is meaningful for us. So I didn't take that as a big sign that Wick's their closer. And then I noticed Wick pitched like the 6th or 7th inning of a game a couple days later. So Hughes, I think, is still hanging around. I did not use him in a league this week, but I held him.
That makes sense. I think that's probably the right play. I mean, Hughes has had a couple of rough outings recently too. So that's the other thing.
He got taken deep by, was it Pujols that took him deep? I think it was.
Yep, it was. Because that was on Sunday, and that supported my Miles Michaelis 8-inning shutout start. So I was very happy about that one.
Yeah.
On the graphic that we used for this podcast on Yahoo, we featured Alex Cobb. I just want to point out, and by the way, Billy says no shot Cobb's on the list. He's a diehard Giants fan, but his reigning schedule is terrible. You're right. I mean, the next 3 starts are Dodgers, Braves, Dodgers. It doesn't get much worse than that. I just want to point out how good Cobb's been recently.
Oh, yes.
And how unlucky he was at the start of the year. He's got a 3.58 ERA right now, 2.84 FIP, though. I mean, he has been exceedingly unlucky, both from the bullpen and also from like the defense behind him. Really, really bad defense. Giants surprisingly have had really awful defense all season long.
Yes, they have.
It's been really kind of tough to watch them. It's weird to say that. In the last 60 days, Alex Cobb has a 2.66 ERA, a 1.16 WHIP, 63 strikeouts in 61 innings. For that effort in those last 60 days, he's 1-3.
Yeah.
1-3 with
I,
those ratios. It's just insane.
yeah, I love Cobb. I think Cobb is a victory for those of us who use analytics and advanced stats because the first 2 months of the year, his ratios were awful.
Yeah.
And I think I've mentioned this on this podcast before, but I had a couple of people tweet at me saying, like, Fred, stop putting Cobb in all your Yahoo articles. Like, you put him in every week as like buy low or pick him up on waivers. And like every week he stinks. And I was like, no, this guy's going to turn around. Yeah. June ERA 216. July 275, August 310, and he threw 7 shutout innings in his first start in September. Like you said, he's got 2 wins in his last 14 starts to show for all those great ratios. But whatever, there's only so much we can control. He's pitching really well. I know his schedule is really hard, but when guys are pitching well, it depends on your league size. Like you may still. I think I benched him in our labor league, but.
Mm-hmm.
Like I thought about it. I thought about putting him in. The Dodgers are a really tough matchup, but I thought about putting him in because, like, again, like they're a tough matchup, but like pitchers who are pitching really well can still hold their own against them. They're not the all-star team.
Yeah, they have some slumpers in there.
Totally.
Chris Taylor's in a massive downswing right now, for instance. Yeah, I would probably, it's really hot out here in Southern California right now. There's 7 home runs in the game last night between the Giants and the Dodgers. I think the Giants hit 5, which see also Andrew Heaney bad start.
Yeah.
The heat wave is supposed to last through Friday. So, I mean, start your hitters right now is what I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Although somehow it doesn't apply to the San Diego Padres. And Case Salazar mentions that we're making fun of the Padres possibly collapsing yet again after the trade deadline. They are collapsing. They've lost 3 in a row. The Phillies lost 6 out of 7, and they haven't lost any ground to the Padres. The Phillies went out west and had a really hard time, too. They were off yesterday. They needed that off day badly. But they're still the second wild card ahead of the Padres. Padres, I mean, they're hanging on, and hanging on for dear life, trying to hold off the Brewers.
Yep. Yeah. That one's going to come down to the wire, and it's going to make things really exciting. I'll say one thing for Cobb, since I'm always backing Cobb, even in the heat wave, even with the ball flying out of the park, Cobb has one of the highest ground ball rates of any starter this year. It's over 60%. So maybe he can withstand that, and the other guy will give up all the home runs. Whoever's acing it for the Dodgers that night maybe he'll give up all the home runs, and Cobb will be okay. But yeah, that Brewers Padres that's going to come. I think that's going to come right down to it. I don't think the Padres are going to suddenly like catch fire. I guess they could. It's a pretty good roster even without Tatis, but I don't know.
I think emotionally they were really down for a while after the Tatis news came out. I can't prove that's not provable. Not quantifiable, but I think it was an issue. I think it really was.
They gave up so much for this Juan Soto guy, and he hasn't even been very good for them. Maybe they overpaid. No, I'm just
my
kidding.
XFL team knows that all too well because and meanwhile Harper hasn't done much since coming back either. I have both of them, and I've been losing ground in that league ever since Harper came back. Actually, both there and in the main event. I don't think Harper's homered since coming back yet. He's hit a couple of rockets, but I don't think I got to check the box scores, but they got swept this weekend in San Francisco. No, he hasn't homered since coming back. And in fact, since he's returned, that's 38 plate appearances. He's already had 7 walks, so his on base is all right. Mm-hmm. He's hitting for average 323, but he's also slugging 387. So I think they're pitching around him a lot. Mm-hmm. It doesn't help that Castellanos is now hurt. That was a big loss for them because he was finally starting to show some signs of life. But it seems like, I need more from him. I need him to catch fire. When I was talking about my main event team that's struggling, I need Harper to start carrying me again like he was earlier.
Yeah, and that's one of the things. I forget I know we mentioned this before we started recording. I don't think we mentioned it after we started recording, but there's not much you can do about it. Bryce Harper's sitting in your lineup. You're not moving him out. You're just waiting. He could hit 5 home runs this week, the rest of the week, and all of a sudden everything's great. Or he could hit none, and you're in big trouble. But you can't move him in and out of your lineup. You just need to hope for the best.
He's by far not even close to being the biggest problem on that team.
Right?
Eloy is just talk about a hair pulling guy. He's in, he's out. He's in, he's out. Okay, I benched him over the weekend. He homers on Saturday. Very frustrating.
But Harper is a problem in the sense that you're not expecting him to just even be good. Like you need him to be great. And since he's come back 9 games, 0 homers, 0 steals,
Yeah.
8 combined runs and RBIs, which I guess isn't completely horrible, but it's not good. It's not Bryce Harper. Yeah,
No.
you need him
No.
to be good.
Yeah, I do. I do.
Yeah.
So that's pretty big on that one there. All right. I think do we get it? We got 5 there. I think we
I
got
don't
5.
know. If we didn't get 5, I'll throw in
Let's
a
go
couple
one more.
bonus ones.
Bonus.
Let's talk about your Reds, because I got Spencer Steer and TJ Friedel in both of them in labor. I got Steer in a couple NFBC leagues. I got Friedel in another NFBC league. I think I picked up Steer and maybe Friedel too in our friends and family, at least one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So am I on the right track here? Because I see these guys getting fairly regular playing time. Friedel can steal a base. Steer looks like a promising hitter. The Reds have an okay schedule this week and then like a really good schedule
9
next week.
games next week. 9.
Yes. They play a lot of games at either a combination of good parks, obviously theirs being one of them, and or against weak pitching staffs the rest of the season. I feel like these Reds could be the key to victory. What do you think?
They could be interesting. I think Jake Fraley is no longer Mickey Mantle, but he's still useful too. Has been available in some leagues. This week they get the Cubs and then at the Brewers. That's not so great. But although they miss out on Burns, they miss out, but they do get Woodruff. But then the following week they get the Pirates for a 4-game series and the Cardinals for 5.
Mm-hmm.
That could be pretty wild. So we'll watch and see what happens with that. But I think you're right. I think you're on the right track. I mean, I think some of this is just, get as many games as you can from these guys. Now, the problem for the team like the Reds, though, is they're going to mix and match a little bit, make sure everybody plays in those doubleheaders. So you're not going to get all 9 games, especially with like Friedel. I feel like you're going to probably, well,
7?
Steer too, for that matter.
Can you get 7? That's what I was hoping for.
Steer 7 would be great. And 7 is very viable. Steer is a prospect. James Anderson has him as his number 103rd prospect in the game. So, yeah, that could be pretty interesting right then and there. And then Friedel, I mean, I think I think the 2 homers were a mirage over the weekend.
Yeah.
I don't see him as a guy that's ever really going to be much of a power threat. 26 years old. I mean, he could catch lightning in a bottle for a couple of weeks, and that's all you're hoping for. But I don't see the power being likely to return. But then again, anybody can get hot for a couple of weeks. So, yeah, not bad ideas. I mean, and we're starving. We're starving for guys to play, and good ballpark for their home games. Why not?
Yeah, I never felt like the homers. So when I saw the homers on Sunday, it didn't make me think, hey, maybe this guy's more of a power hitter than this massive sample size of his career has indicated. It just made me think, a guy who hits 2 homers, he hit 2 homers in the first game, and then he also got 2 hits in the second game. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, that probably keeps him in the lineup. So if that just keeps him in the lineup fairly regularly for the next few days, if he can just get to that 9-game week as someone who plays most days, and he's a left-handed bat who's got limited activity against lefties this year, but when he has gotten the chance to hit lefties, he's actually hit them really well. Really, really small sample, but he has hit them well enough that his manager could say, okay, well, let's give him a couple starts against lefties. He's done okay in limited opportunities. So, yeah, a guy with an 806 OPS and a little bit of speed at this point in the year, I'm in.
Awesome. I like it.
Yeah.
I like it there.
Yeah.
I also like Caesar Sportsbook because they advertise with us, and we always like people to advertise with us. So, quick note from Caesars: the weather is heating up, and boy, is it out here! And so are the promotions at Caesar Sportsbook. Today, anyone who is at least 21 years old and in a licensed Caesar Sportsbook state can create a new account and redeem the Caesar Sportsbook promo code ROTO15. That's ROTO15. The promo code gives new users a risk-free first bet up to $1,500. Visit Caesars.com/sportsbooks or download the Caesar Sportsbook app today. And don't forget to use promo code ROTO15 when signing up. Jeff Erickson here with Fred Zinkie. We are talking about, we just did our sneaky pickups for September. A couple of things I want to talk about before we sign off today, because I know we all have a lot of stuff going on. You're a football writer too, Fred. I noticed that. You're doing a lot of football writing. You done with your drafts?
So I am, but I'm still feeling the itch. I just last minute signed up for a league last night and did a draft before I went to bed. And then an FFPC draft. And After I was done, the football drafts are just so fast and they're so easy. Like
Yeah.
after you do a baseball draft, you're kind of exhausted. After a football draft, man, it was like 90 minutes or something.
Yeah.
It's so easy. And I was like, oh, I could do another one of these right now. So tonight, I'm definitely not drafting because my kids have too many sports. Tomorrow, I'm not ruling out sneaking in one more draft because
Do a
this
RotoWire Online Championship, the NFFC. You should do it.
I can't do that because I live in Ontario.
Ooh, earns. That's
So
right.
that is a new thing this summer where Ontario has messed up Ontario has added sports betting, and in the process of adding sports betting, they've made an error where, like, why would you care about us playing in fantasy leagues that we've played in I played in the NFBC and NFFC for 25 years.
Yeah.
20 years for sure I have. Why would you care about me playing in that again this year when you just legalize and there's sports betting like all over the place? But anyways, in the wording of everything and the way they've set it up, they've got it messed up. So I know there are people working behind the scenes to try to get that fixed by next baseball season. But for football season, the NFFC let me know, and all the other Canadians, that we can't play this year.
Yeah, it stinks.
Sad. It's very sad. Very sad. And so I was sad about it. But as you know, like baseball is kind of my number one. Like I really hope it's fixed by February or January even, but I hope it's fixed by then, and then I can play in NFBC leagues.
Who do you talk to? Which governmental representative can you complain to?
This is provincial government, so it's probably Doug Ford that I need to go to. If you've never looked up any Doug Ford videos, just Google.
I have. The whole Ford family seems to be a source of entertainment.
They are a source of entertainment. Doug Ford would be a guy who would want to go in your fantasy football league. So there's no way this was his idea.
All right.
He actually used to coach high school football before he was in politics. So he would want to be in your league. But anyways, so I can't go in those online championships right now.
That's a bummer.
Frustrating.
Bummer.
Yes.
Let's finish off with two questions. Nelson asks, I added Jose Quintana pitches versus Washington tonight and Pittsburgh Sunday, 2-star pitcher. Good pick.
Yep.
You like it?
Yep.
I endorse it too.
Two really good matchups. Like you could get burned, but this late in the year, I don't think you're going to get much better than that.
For sure.
Yeah.
Then James asks, Nick Lodolo or Jordan Montgomery rest of the season categories league? Not points, so categories.
Sorry, first name was?
James asked Nick Lodolo or Jordan Montgomery.
Okay, sorry. Second name was Jordan Montgomery. Oh, Jordan Montgomery.
Yeah, snap call, huh?
I
realize Lodolo is really good.
I like Nick Lodolo for sure, but still a little wild.
And he still pitches for the Reds. So even when he pitches awesome, like he did on Sunday, the bullpen can go in and go and blow it all up.
Jordan Montgomery, since he got to St. Louis, has been awesome. 6 starts, 5-0, 147 ERA, 32-6 strikeout to walk. Like he has been great since he got to St. Louis. Like I would take Jordan Montgomery over a lot of pitchers right now. By the way, fun fact on Nick Lodolo, if he just steps it up a little bit, he can average 1 hit batter per start this year. He's only 1 behind right now.
Hey, don't let him get comfortable. I mean, I'm fully on board with that. No digging in against me.
When Nick Lodolo
new latter-day Don Drysdale. Let's go.
Yeah, when Nick Lodolo starts, the other team knows, like, one of you is getting hit. Like, somewhere in Nick Lodolo's, like, about 5 innings that he's going to throw, one of the 9 of you is getting hit. So, because
look to your left, look to your right. One of you will get hit. It's like 1L law school there. Huh?
Yes.
All right, I like it.
Yeah.
In his last 8 starts, Lodolo only has 1 win, but in that stretch, he's got a 2.89 ERA, 114 WHIP, 53 strikeouts in 46 innings. So 6 batters hit, by the way, to your point, and also 18 walks. So that's a good amount of walks. But
yeah, what going to hold Lodolo back even next year are the 2 things, like you said, his team / bullpen isn't good, so he's probably not going to have great win potential, and with the walks. His whip is unlikely to be low, whereas Montgomery has the control this year where he has a 110 whip, or sorry, a 106 whip this year. Like he has the control skills to help your whip too. Lodolo and Montgomery could have similar ERAs. I think Montgomery will have better whip and way more wins, fewer strikeouts by a bit, but I'll take the trade-off.
Yeah. And I guess, and as we preach, this time of year, it matters what's going on in your categories. If you need Ks, go Lodolo. Montgomery, since going over to the Cardinals, has been amazing. 147, 093. That's obviously not bankable. He had that 1 bad outing against the Braves, but 32 Ks and only 6 walks in those 36 innings. So his K rate has gone up since joining the Cardinals. So that helps too, which is always nice.
Yep.
All right. Good questions, folks. Thanks everybody for chiming in the forum here. Fred, what do you got cooking? What's your next article going to be? Baseball, football, both?
Back to baseball. Got a new pickups article. Might have the Reds in it.
Content
coming out on Friday. I think I did have a football article was yesterday, and that was players who have tough early season schedules might get off to a slow start, but you shouldn't panic because their schedule's bad or something in their team.
Okay.
It might hold them back early in the season. Then they'll get rolling.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, everybody. Big thanks for tuning in. Got Prospect Podcast tomorrow. I've got Paul Sporer on Thursday talking baseball. Al Zeidenfeld talking football with me tomorrow. So looking forward to that as well. Al's great. So looking forward to that. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Take care.